that the sun shines down its power to all the world and makes the wind blow strong as it will. I wonder how gentle rains can fall upon the land, so lovely earth can stay lovely still. Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the 442nd edition of Energy Week with George Harvey, me, and the astonishing Tom Fennell.
As I usually say, in the flesh.
And this show is made up of discussion about items that came up in the news about energy and climate change, which I used at my blog, geoharvey.com, geoharvey.com. You can go there, or you can go to a site that Tom and I use for developing this show, or a download from that site, both of which have links or whatever to them on the page below the screen that you just scroll down, keep scrolling until you until you find it.
I was just going to say something like that, because some of these articles are well worth pursuing.
Yeah.
There's always one every week that just it's just so loaded with information.
Oh yeah, and I think that's going to increase in days ahead because COP26 is coming up, and we've got all this stuff going on in Washington. The news for this show starts on Thursday, October 21st. Today being the 28th, we've got items from the 21st through the 27th, and I guess I'm ready to go if you are.
Let's see, we got to get some pictures up here.
We do indeed, and there's a picture that you can put up. This picture is of a Rivian truck, and you can recognize it pretty easily by the headlights.
We're starting off looking at an electric truck, which incidentally, or coincidentally, does not have a grill.
How could you possibly notice that? It just slipped by me altogether.
But what's interesting about this, it has a lockable trunk.
Yes.
Which is a useful thing in a pickup truck.
It is indeed.
I mean, where do you put your golf clubs,
You put them in the frunk.
But somebody can see them through the window.
Yeah, absolutely. Although it wasn't that long ago in some parts of the United States, and it might even still be the case, I haven't seen pictures of it recently, guys would take their rifles and shotguns and put them in racks in the back window of a pickup truck.
Yeah.
So it reminds me of when I was a little kid.
I don't think you want to leave it there for...
When I was a little kid,
5
years old, 1951, we were living in Denver. And I remember going out in the countryside, for rides, and my mother complaining about the bullet holes in the traffic signs. And she said...
Well, that's what traffic signs are for.
Yeah, absolutely. And my father said, oh, people in Colorado don't do that. And she said... There are holes in the signs. How did that happen? And he said, that's Texans. Oh, Texans drive up to Colorado just to put bullet holes in the traffic signs.
Well, they got a few bullet holes in traffic signs right here in good old Vermont. So
I haven't seen any, but then I don't drive. So.
Well, let's move along here and take a look at a funny-looking little truck.
Yep, there it is, Rivian pickup truck.
No grill.
And an article.
But it's got an interesting thing that most trucks don't have, and that's a lockable trunk.
Yes, which is in front, and it's called a frunk. And
I'm surprised that the truck didn't come out looking like a Volkswagen microbus.
They wanted it to look like a pickup truck.
Yeah,
I think.
obviously, quite obviously.
Because
there's no functional reason why it has to look like that.
Yeah. This article comes from Clean Technica, and Tom has the title.
Don't buy another gas car.
Well, by golly, what a good idea. Maybe you normally let your cars run 5 years or 10 years or longer before you replace them. However, when the time comes to replace your car, don't buy another gas car. The car companies are increasingly making EVs. Within 10 years, we will look on gas cars the way we now look on film cameras and tube TVs. In the old days, they had plates, and then later on they had everything was digital. And in between, in that little bit in between, they had wonderful cameras like the Kodak Brownie that you could stick in your pocket and you know, they had film inside, and you'd have to mail the film to somebody or bring it into the
Oh,
drugstore.
yeah. Oh, definitely.
Well, what they're looking at is the thing where
Well, let's look at that truck again, because I think it's...
the more I think about
I
this,
can
you
figure
know,
out which one of these things is. I'm playing with two mice here. And
well, you got the right one in your hand right now. I can see the
there we
cursor
go.
running.
Yeah,
There you
yeah.
go.
I'm looking at the
There it
truck
is.
again. Well, electric cars are a superior non-polluting technology to gasoline cars.
Superior in every way I can think of.
Virtually every way. Electric cars are much simpler than gas cars. Maintenance costs are much lower. The cost to refuel for electricity is about a third the price of gasoline.
And you know what? You can refuel them at home just by plugging them in overnight. So,
Well, you know what's going to develop? I think people are going to start putting up car ports
yeah,
in their driveway
Yeah.
with solar panels on the roof.
you can already buy them.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. If you own an older car, this is an interesting thing. Once you feel the smooth as silk, rocket-like acceleration of an electric car, and you will feel like you've arrived in the 21st century. Now, I haven't driven an electric car, but I have ridden in them. They take off fast.
Jason's Tesla?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yep.
He's got acceleration, boy.
He's got acceleration. Well, you know, my last car was a Prius. It was a 2001 Prius, which is, I think, the first model year they had them in the United States. And I was amazed at the acceleration in that vehicle. It was very impressive. I mean, it had a really small engine. It was like a 1.6 liter engine or something like that. Not a big engine, but it also had a motor, and that motor was about this big and 35 horsepower. And when you got both of those applying, you know, energy to that,
Both working together. You could have them both working together in a Prius, couldn't you?
yeah, they would automatically work together
Yeah.
if that's what it came to. And you know, that was fun. Anyway, we should go on.
Well, we got another picture coming up, and
We
I'd like
do.
to take a look at that.
Yeah, let's
This
look
is
at-
an interesting picture.
It looks pretty dull on the offset.
It
but-
looks pretty double. What you're looking at there is a battery, but it's a structural component of the car.
Yes.
That's why it's in a steel case.
Yes, and they're building these batteries. You can see the line up there of them being built.
Well, it's a battery factory.
It's a battery factory. Yeah, amazing. This is from Clean.
It happens to be a Volkswagen battery factory, by
Yeah,
the way.
this is from Clean Technica. What do you have for title?
Study shows recycled lithium batteries are as good as newly mined lithium batteries.
Now, the recycled part here is the lithium, not the entire battery.
Just the lithium, right?
Just the lithium. There's a new study that found that recycled lithium-ion batteries are as good as and even better than new batteries made with newly mined materials. The study showed that recycled Nmc 111, does anybody know what that means? Cathodes actually are superior in both rate and cycle performance.
Well, bringing this closer to home, the study was conducted at Worcester Polytechnic Institute,
Wow.
which is about halfway between here and Boston,
I know where that
in
is.
a straight line. It has shown that batteries and automakers don't have to worry about recycled battery materials being
Yeah.
as good as freshly mined materials.
Yeah,
And there's an
absolutely.
image on that.
You know,
We're looking at it.
I came across a reference to some article that appeared. I didn't see the original article, but the article was about people driving their cars into rivers in order to get rid of them because the battery had lost its power. And I thought, what kind of drug are these people on
They're driving their cars into
to get rid of them because
get rid of-
because the battery had died. And you know, I'm sitting there thinking, I used EV battery when you know it's time to replace it. You take it out of the car, you put a new one in, and you get like $2,000 or $3,000 in rebates for that old battery.
The old battery is worth a lot.
Worth a lot of money.
It's quite recyclable.
So, you know, I mean, people dream up or invent, I will say invent, the most outrageous things you can imagine. Okay, we should go on, Tom.
Yeah, we got a nice picture coming up
We
here.
have a picture, and this is from
It's called Tent
CBC.
Mountain in southwestern Alberta.
Yep.
And I know this area. I've been that way. I skied in Banff.
Oh, did you? And it's not Banff. It's Banff.
Oh, sorry about that. Banff.
That's right.
I was at a convention in Calgary.
Yeah.
And the events didn't begin till the evening.
Okay.
So myself and one of the other guys at the show
Drove around.
went
the
up
country.
to Banff.
Yeah.
And a funny thing happened on the way out.
Oh,
We
wait a
got
minute.
stuck in an avalanche.
A funny thing happened on the way to Banff. You got stuck in an avalanche.
Yeah, we didn't. We were just sitting there on a highway for about 2-3 hours before they cleared the avalanche.
Oh man, you're lucky.
So those mountains there are the state line between British Columbia and Alberta.
Okay. Well, let me. Oh, you didn't read the title yet. This is
Instead of a coal mine, this Alberta mountain may now become a green energy complex.
yeah. This is from cbc.ca. The .ca
That's
means
interesting because
Canada.
everything that they needed was already there.
Yeah, including the fact that it was all flooded, I think. Montem Resources gave up a plan to develop an open pit coal mine on 10th Mountain. The open pit coal mine was already there. And
It was there.
You can see it full of water here.
Well, they ran out of coal.
Yeah, only somebody found a way to get more out of it. It was a new proposal to use the mountain. It has a new proposal to use the mountain for pumped hydro energy storage powered by nearby wind turbines, along with a green hydrogen production facility. So
Well, in case people watching the show don't know what pump storage is,
yes,
it involves moving water uphill and storing it,
yeah,
essentially creating a big battery.
yeah,
Okay? When the energy is needed, the water is released downhill and it spins turbines.
yep. And,
Duh.
and years ago, and I'm talking about over 40 years ago, almost 50 years ago, when they were building the Vermont Yankee nuclear power plant, they built the Northfield Mountain pumped storage facility in Northfield, Massachusetts, to take up the
Yes,
extra.
you tell me they were a 1-2 punch there.
They
weren't
were. They were different organizations, but somebody sat down and said, wait a minute, this nuclear power can't shut down overnight. It's got to keep going. So they're going to have electricity. They're going to be selling for real cheap because
There's going to be an opportunity for us here.
And then during the daytime, people are going to want that electricity. And they built it, and it was but pump storage has been around for a long time.
Well, this is an interesting location because the size and shape of 10th Mountain, combined with its existing reservoirs, creates an absolutely unique opportunity for a pumped hydro facility.
Right.
The site already has two key components for such a project: a high altitude and a low altitude reservoir.
Yeah. Yeah.
How much power you get from a high hydro site is a function of the flow rate of water and a vertical drop, which is called the head.
Yeah.
It's all there.
It's all there. Okay, we are going from some pretty impressive mountains to some pretty impressive non-mountains.
Well, it's not very impressive, but it is kind of an attractive picture. Heck of
Yeah.
a storm, isn't it?
It looks like a storm, doesn't it? Yeah.
Looks an awful like a
This
storm
is from
to me.
CNN.
This might just look like grass, but it has the power to absorb a load of our carbon emissions.
This, I thought, was a really, really interesting article.
Oh, it is.
Forests, peatlands, deserts, tundra, they can all absorb and hold stocks of CO2. Of all the carbon held in land-based ecosystems, about 34% are found in grasslands, according to data from the World Resources Institute. That's pretty close to the 39% held in forests.
It is. Very close.
And
Absolutely.
if you look at this, these grasslands, how long does it take to plant a tree? How long does it take to plant a grass seed?
Well, environmental groups around the world are calling for the world to plant 1 trillion trees over the next decade
Yeah,
to absorb and store carbon dioxide.
yeah,
But we should start looking down. Another answer lies right under our feet.
right. And you know what is really good? Even far, far better than forests is turf, the Irish turf, the peat.
Peat, right,
Yeah.
yeah. Well, grasslands are less vulnerable to fires and drought than forests are.
If there's a fire, they recover.
Well, they keep most of their carbon locked up underground.
That's absolutely right.
One environmental group is working to restore more than 250,000 acres of meadows in southern England.
Yep.
I didn't think there was 2,000 acres of meadows in all of England.
England has got
Well,
a
you've
lot of
lived
meadow.
there.
I have, in 2 different places. I loved it. Okay, our next
Another
item.
picture coming up here.
This picture is wind turbines in
Is that what that is? That's a wind turbine for
there's,
them, huh?
there's
How
5 of
about
them there, I
that?
think. This is from
They're not as big as they could be these days.
well, I think
Looking at the nacelles.
yeah. Well, what can I say? The Guardian published this. What do you have for a title?
Record levels of renewable energy drive down electricity prices across Australia.
How could they expect anything else? Record levels of renewable energy drove down the electricity prices across Australia in the September quarter, with prices 0 or lower 1/6 of the time. The price of
Prices
electricity...
are less than zero means
They pay you to take it. 1/6 of the time. AEMO said in a report the solar, wind, and hydro supplied a record 31.7% of the electricity. Now in the United
Well,
States...
that's going to be going up.
Yeah, it's going up. And in the United States, it's like 21%. But this is Australia. And the Australian federal government has been fighting this tooth and nail. They've been trying to prevent renewable energy, electricity from being developed.
Kind of short-sighted, I would say. Well, they're starting to catch on. I think we're going to be talking about that a little later.
Yeah, we probably will.
Well, mild weather, or milder weather, and ongoing weak electricity demand caused by COVID-related lockdowns helped to send gas and electricity prices plunging.
Yeah.
They're snapping back, but
Gas prices are coming back fast.
yeah.
But all over the world.
Increased rooftop solar use also meant consumers reduced the need to access the grid for power.
Yeah.
Now, Australia is using rooftop solar a lot more than we are.
There are states in Australia where more than 1/3 of the people in the state have got rooftop solar.
Yeah. And, it's just found money.
Yeah. Okay,
Let's move along here.
Our next item has a picture of a Tesla Model 3 in
That's
China.
a funny-looking little car, isn't it?
Well, it's had a facelift, which means
Yeah, well,
that,
tell me what that...
well, for one thing,
I'm gonna pull it up, and what do you mean by a facelift?
hubs on the wheels are not chrome-plated; they're painted black. I mean, they've altered the picture a
They
little
are
bit.
painted black, aren't they?
Yeah. Anyway, this is an item from Clean Technica.
Tesla switching to LFP batteries for standard Model 3 and Model Y cars.
Okay, now LFP.
Well, you're going to tell us what that is.
Yeah, it's lithium iron phosphate. Iron is Fe, and Clean Technica is the only publication I know of that uses that
LFP?
LFP for lithium.
Lithium, iron, and phosphorus.
Yeah, that's
and
right.
iron is abbreviated Fe.
That's right. And it's if you look at the formula, it's LiFePO4. And most people I know of who are in working with these things call that LiFePO4.
Okay.
So
That's what it looks like to me, LiFePO4.
Tesla started using LFP batteries in the Model 3s made in China last year. Tesla will use lithium iron phosphate LiFePO4 chemistry for all standard range cars globally from this point forward. It is also using LFP batteries in its grid scale energy storage projects. Now, that means it's basically abandoning lithium ion for lithium ferrophosphate. And there are a bunch of reasons to do that. But
Well, I've got a couple of notes here.
yeah.
Nmc batteries, the old-fashioned kind of batteries,
Yep.
are more energy dense, but tend to be unstable and can combust. And we've talked about that on the show.
We have indeed.
LFP batteries cost less primarily because they do not depend on scarce and costly raw materials like cobalt and nickel.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay? LFP batteries have not been seen much outside of China due to a series of key patents, which will soon be expiring.
How about that?
How about that? The range for a Tesla Model 3 on these LFP power packs is almost 300 miles.
So
that's not bad.
There's no reason to worry about range on these
That's
things.
more than just commuting.
Yeah. It is.
Let's move along here to Sunday, October 23rd.
What a good idea. We have a picture here of
picture here.
Arizona traffic, which I picked up from Unsplash. And this is a...
How do you know it's Arizona? I can't even see a license plate.
Because when I went on Unsplash, I looked for traffic, and
they said it was in Arizona, and you believed them.
I'm sorry, I'm a sucker. Anyway, this is from the BBC. What do you got for
How America is tackling its greatest source of emissions.
Yeah, cars.
What are they?
Yeah.
Duh.
Cars are central to the American culture. Boy, are they ever. You know,
yeah.
How many places have I been where you say, who is Joe Schultz? Oh, he's the guy who drives the, Camry or whatever it is.
That becomes part of his personality.
It is his personality. I mean, if he's a great classical violinist, or if he is the best poker player in town, or
But he drives a Chevrolet.
What can you say? All of that stuff is irrelevant once you know. Anyway, cars are central to American culture, giving people mobility and a freedom to travel, which they dearly love. But since 2017, transportation has been the single largest source of greenhouse gases in the United States, largely due to cars. To reach net zero by 2050, excuse me, the U.S. needs to rethink its relationship with the automobile. I got news.
Well, it's happening as we speak.
You mentioned
they're
this
going electric.
Before. People are going to be going to electric vehicles because they have lots and lots of advantages, not the least of which is that they have really good acceleration.
Well, one of the big advantages is in another 10 years, you're not going to be able to buy an internal combustion car.
Yeah. And if you have one, you're going to be looking all over the place for fuel.
And you're going to be looking for someone who knows how to fix it.
Yes.
Moving to clean transport requires rethinking about how we move about in the first place.
That's right.
Massive investment is needed to move American cities in a direction of bike and public transit-friendly metropolises in Europe.
There you go.
However, funding from the government for highways is much more generous than for rail. How come, huh? Some states have projects in the works to test a tax on vehicle miles traveled. Well, we really have one now with a gas tax, but you're not going to be using gas, so that tax is going out the window.
Yeah, and people who are driving EVs absolutely object to the idea that they should pay for the road.
Well, this is what it says in the article. The thought is that just like any other utility, we ought to pay based on our use.
Yes.
And pay extra when highways are backed up.
And you know what?
It's going to happen.
It's going to happen, but
another.
People are going to be really angry about the idea that they have to tell the government what the odometer reads.
I can't do that.
Because your odometer doesn't work? I had that happen once. Okay, we have a picture here of Rugby Run Solar Farm.
That's a big farm.
That's a big farm. This is from ABC News.
It's 65 megawatts. Ours in town is 5 megawatts.
Yeah.
250,000 solar panels. And it's in the part of Australia called Queensland in the northeast.
Yeah. And this is from ABC News. ABC is not American broadcast company. It's Australian.
It's Australian broadcasting.
That's right.
Duh.
Yeah.
Solar farm output overloads the national grid, sparking calls for accelerated transmission.
As Australian homeowners embrace solar panels and solar farms pop up, renewable output is outpacing the means of transmission. With a glut of solar energy overwhelming the power grid, there has been a seismic shift in the electricity network.
Well, there's some things here that are in the article in there. I got them listed, and I'm going to go through them real quick. Solar power capacity has tripled in the last 4 years.
Whoa!
When the sun is shining, there is a glut of electricity in the system.
Yeah.
Okay.
Absolutely.
If there is not sufficient demand to take it all, the market operator needs to dial back the output. That's basically what this article is about.
That's one of the beautiful things about solar and wind is that you can tell them to stop producing.
So the electricity market operator has directed a number of solar farms to reduce their output. Now that's kind of foolish, but
well, you know
I know why he's doing it,
yeah,
but it's
absolutely.
still foolish.
What they should be doing is putting batteries at all of these old solar farms.
Saving that.
Saving it, absolutely.
Last month, Queensland announced a $700 million transmission upgrade program. Now this is the takeaway. Creating demand is the answer to making room for more large-scale renewables in the market. And the demand is for green hydrogen, both domestically and for export. We've talked about that in the past.
Absolutely.
We're going to be talking about it in the future because it's important.
Okay, our next item, we have a military facility.
Another picture there.
How
did that picture get there?
I put it up.
You put it up.
I just switched to the
You're
next
doing
picture.
sneaky things to me.
I do that, and I do it without even touching the mouse. Okay, this is from Energy
Look at all the
Storage
solar
News.
panels, but way in the back is all of the storage.
Yeah.
It looks like shipping containers, huh? There's a bunch of them.
Yeah.
It's really a bunch of them.
Maybe they are shipping containers.
Well, let's move along here to see what it says. Ameresco's 2 gigawatt-hour battery storage for the utility SCE, that's Southern California Energy, I think, to help address California's power reliability risks.
Clean energy systems provider Ameresco has contracted with California utility Southern California Edison. It's Edison, Tom.
Yeah, I was wrong. I said Southern California Electric.
Yeah, you're close. You get 2 out of 3.
2 out of 3.
That's a passing grade. To deliver battery energy storage systems with a total of 537.5 megawatts of power and 2,150 megawatt hours.
That's a lot of storage.
A lot of storage, yeah, energy capacity.
That's a lot of power. That's a half a gigawatt.
Yeah.
I mean,
That's a lot of power.
That's a lot of power.
That's, what was that? That's as much power as the Vermont Yankee nuclear plant.
Yes.
So this thing stores as much electricity as that nuclear plant produced in 4 hours.
Well, the shortfall of electricity supply that the state suffers, particularly acute at peak times during summers.
Yeah.
Ameresco will provide 3 separate 4-hour duration projects, which is significant.
Yeah.
Each connected to a distribution substation. The systems will charge from the grid during times of excess generation, including abundant daytime solar power, and then discharge is required by the utility when demand peaks.
Yep.
It makes a lot of sense.
It does indeed.
This is a sensible thing.
Now, I have got a picture coming up here, which people
Oh,
can see.
this is nice.
These are what's
You
called...
brought that picture up, didn't you?
I did that. I have this psychic link with your mouse.
These are live oaks.
They're live oaks, they're just called live oaks. They're
It's a very common tree in the American South.
Yeah, and I believe that's Spanish moss hanging from them.
That's Spanish moss. That's not the tree. That's a parasite.
Yeah. But
it's not really a parasite.
It
just hangs off the branches. It doesn't suck off the tree.
Yeah. This is just a beautiful place, I think.
Well, my sister lived in South Carolina for about 20 years.
Yeah?
And there was a little park nearby.
That was like this?
All it was one giant live oak.
Oh, my gosh.
I mean, it was a big one. They're pretty trees.
Yeah.
And the kids love the live oak because they're easy to climb.
Aha. There you go.
So every time that I went down to visit them, a trip to see the live oak was necessary.
Okay, this is from CNN. What's the title you got?
Florida is ditching palm trees to fight the climate crisis. This is interesting.
You know, we were talking about trees versus grass earlier.
This is trees versus trees.
That's right. When you think of Florida, beaches and palm trees come to mind. But what if those palm trees were slowly replaced with other trees? That could happen over time because of climate change, and communities in South Florida are trying to save the world from the climate crisis. This article had information in it that was just astonishing to me.
Well, it says that Florida's palms are least effective at carbon sequestration.
Yeah.
Okay, which I would not have expected.
I wouldn't have known that.
And they give some numbers. The average palm in southern Florida absorbs only 5 pounds of CO2 per year.
5 pounds.
It doesn't sound by much.
No, 5 pounds.
5 pounds of CO2 is a lot.
5 pounds of CO2 is the amount that your car will generate in about 5 miles.
Is that so?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Other trees can sequester more than 3,000 pounds of CO2 over their lifetime.
That sounds a little bit more significant, doesn't it?
Well, apparently these palm trees really don't have trunks. They're not trunks in the sense that our trees are trunks and they're all wood.
Yeah.
You can slice them up and make boards. The tree trunks of the palm trees are basically elongated leaves.
Ah, okay.
So they don't have wood in them.
And
that's what this story is all about.
Yeah, there you go. Okay.
Research shows that mature oak trees can increase their photosynthesis by up to a third in response to higher CO2 levels. So these trees are smart.
Yeah, I guess.
West Palm Beach gives out 1,000 native trees a year to residents and businesses to plant, species such as oak, ash, elm, and sycamore. But they do not use the Canopy Tree Fund to plant palms.
Okay. Our next item is from CNN, and we have
another picture
a
here.
picture that shows beyond a doubt that NOAA wants to be remembered.
That's a storm over California, which is driven by an atmospheric river.
Yeah, we had an atmospheric river in California this last week, and we had another one off the East Coast.
We will be talking about exactly that before the show is over,
Yeah.
I think. Weather whiplash, or as they say in Flatbush, weather whiplash. A series of storms could ease California drought, but also unleash flood hazards.
Yeah, well, they unleashed flood hazards. Parts of the West Coast will go from extreme drought to facing a series of bomb cyclones and an atmospheric river. The Pacific Northwest and Northern California will have rains, flash floods, debris flows, and potential hurricane-force winds. Well, by golly, that's what they did. And
go from a rock to a hard place.
Yeah, well, it's really awful. I think things could have been worse in terms of the flooding. But
well, it's been a drought.
It's been a horrible drought.
And all of a sudden, it just flooded.
All of a sudden, there's water just pouring out of the sky, and unfortunately, when that comes down on a piece of property where there used to be a forest, but the forest burned down, there isn't a lot of integrity.
No, that can be problems there.
That can be big problems, and they've had landslides, and now this bomb cyclone has gone by. This atmospheric river is played out, and another one is coming.
Well, they call these things bomb cyclones, which are named for the speed at which it intensifies or bombs out.
Yeah.
And they expect it to set records for the lowest pressure storm in the Northeast Pacific Ocean.
Yep.
This strong system is forecast to produce winds of hurricane strength.
Yes.
This is a serious storm
serious
system.
thing. Okay.
These storms, I got a few more things.
Okay.
They're narrow bands of concentrated moisture emerging from the warm waters of the Pacific Ocean.
Yep.
The average atmospheric river transports more than 20 times the water of the Mississippi River.
Yeah.
So these things carry a lot of water with them.
Absolutely.
Ultimately, this atmospheric river is needed more than ever to replenish the unrelenting drought.
And what happens is, with the warmer air above the warmer water, they carry huge amounts of moisture, and then what do? They hit the mountains of the Pacific Northwest and California, and going over those mountains, they cool off, and they just drop all that.
Well, we talked about that last week.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Okay, our next item is from CNN, and if this train looks unusually narrow...
Oh, I like this train. Yeah, that's a good...
If it looks unusually narrow to you, there's a reason.
It's a double-decker high.
It's 2 stories tall. 2 train stories.
Testing the Caltrain EMU train set. So this train, as of this writing, is not yet in production, but it's a real train.
It's a real train.
That's not a model. That's a real train.
Yeah, that's a real train.
They're trying it out.
This is from Scott Scoop News.
From who?
The name of the place
is
Scott
Scoop News. That's just who it is. Caltrain pushes for renewability with electric trains.
After a period of delayed funding, Caltrain's electrification project is finally coming into place. Its mission is to transform all of Caltrain's diesel trains into electric ones. The change will see benefits of quieter, faster, and less polluting train service, according to one employee.
Well, Caltrain is a commuter railroad. It's not a very big one. It serves cities in the San Francisco Peninsula and Silicon Valley. And they talk about EMUs, their electric multiple units, which is what you see there in the picture.
Yep.
Commuters can expect to see electric trains arriving at their stations by 2024.
Which is not that long.
And the
from
board
now.
will be buying its power from Peninsula Clean Energy, which is 100% renewable.
One of the things that I learned living on top of a mountain was that you can hear a train from a long ways away.
Yes, you can. Absolutely.
And I actually figured out that I was hearing a train that was over 10 miles away.
Oh, I can believe that.
Yeah.
I can believe that.
I mean, literally, I could show that because it was in sight when it was 7 miles away. Okay.
Well, one of the things that's going to happen when and if they go to electric, and the lines are there already. You don't have to put up the wires because there's other railroads use them. But they will be able to go underground in San Francisco, and
Oh, yeah.
they can't do that with diesel trains.
Huge advantages in electric trains.
So they'll have like a subway.
Yeah. Okay, we are up to
Monday, October
25th, and we have a picture of tidal wetlands in Chesapeake Bay.
It certainly looks like tidal wetlands.
And
They happen to be in Chesapeake Bay.
And this is from the Bay Journal.
What are Chesapeake Bay's marshes worth? New study suggests billions.
That is billions of dollars, by the way.
That's true.
Large swaths of the marshes on the coast of Maryland and Virginia are expected to disappear under rising water by 2100.
That's kind of scary.
Yeah, it is. That loss will rob many low-lying communities of a critical natural buffer that protects them from storm surges and widespread flooding during hurricanes. This is not...
But with sea level rise alone, the total area flooded from storm surge will increase by a quarter from the storm surges of today.
Yeah.
And if marsh loss is included, 40% more land will be inundated than now. The marshes provide friction. The plants themselves attenuate the energy.
Yeah.
So these are a kind of a buffer.
Yeah.
And they're, according to this article, very much in danger of disappearing entirely.
Yeah. Okay. Our next item is from BBC, and we have a picture.
Now that looks like a flood.
It does, but these are trees.
It's flooded.
It does. It looks like those trees died from
there.
flooding. It says dead trees. It doesn't say why. But anyway, what do you got for a title?
The environmental disasters we've almost fixed.
Yep. There are no simple solutions to complex problems like climate change, but there have been times in the past when the world has come together to try to fix an environmental crisis. We dealt with acid rain, and we dealt with a hole in the ozone layer.
That's just what I was going to say. In 1970s, acid rain was a big problem.
It was
We've dealt
indeed.
with that.
1980s,
it was the hole in the ozone layer.
Yep.
And we've dealt with that.
And we have lessons that we can...
Now, going back to the 1920s, we haven't dealt with this one completely. We became aware of leaded gasoline.
Oh, man.
They're still doing it.
The last country stopped selling leaded gasoline. It was Algeria.
Okay.
Yeah. Now,
for decades, companies added lead additives to help the gas burn more efficiently.
Yeah, and they had to get rid of that because it was making people really sick.
Well, and health risks.
Yeah.
I mean,
exactly. Okay, we should go on, and we have a protest sign: "No business on a dead planet." I think that's true. Although you never can tell. You know, we could die and our artificially intelligent computers could just keep going. What do you think of that idea? Anyway, this is from CNN. What do you have for
COVID looms over crucial climate talks as some leaders snub the event. This is an interesting article.
Yeah. In a battle against climate change, the summit in Glasgow is still of vital importance, but there is now a question about whether it will adequately flesh out the 2015 Paris Agreement. It'd better, because we're in trouble if it doesn't. Some G20 countries have not disclosed their plans yet, and some key leaders will not attend.
Well, the next sentence echoes that. Just months ago, consensus was growing that COP26 would be a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to hit the reset button on a climate crisis. But less than a week out, things are looking shaky.
Yeah, they are.
Now that COP26 is happening next week,
they're
so
still looking
we
shaky.
will be talking about it on the show.
We will indeed. Okay, we're up to Tuesday, October 26th. We have a picture of a wind farm, and I forget where that is.
I don't know where that is, but it's not in Vermont.
No, it's not in Vermont.
New research findings showing that renewables are poised to crush fossil fuels in the market. It's inevitable.
It's inevitable. This is from interest.co.nz, which means it's from New Zealand.
Right, yep.
Costs of renewables have fallen faster than expected, and deployment has been faster than predicted, reducing costs even further. With this virtuous cycle, we have come to a point that a rapid, clean energy transition is the least expensive path forward.
Well, some of these countries seem to be copping out for COP26.
Yeah.
The transition to clean energy will cost less and will proceed faster than many analysts expect.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
But in recent years, this outlook has been fully vindicated.
Yeah.
Okay. But with COP26 fast approaching, it is imperative that the world leaders recognize that achieving this Paris Climate Agreement 1.5 degrees Celsius warming target is not about making sacrifices. It's about seizing opportunity.
Yeah. Yeah, and they should be aware of that.
Renewables are following the same exponential growth curve as past technology, which we've talked about right here on the show.
That's right. Yep. Okay. We have an item from the BBC and a picture of a Tesla. And that name of it says Tesla, Perrin, Beat, and J-A-U. I wonder if that's pronounced U. Beat you.
Was he Japanese or something?
I have no idea.
He's not Irish.
No, I don't think he's Irish.
He would be Mick Jew then.
Okay.
That's an interesting car. You will also notice it does not have a grill.
All these cars don't have grills. How do they do that?
Nice looking little car though. Looks pretty sporty.
Yeah, it does. I don't know what model that is. I didn't see it on the.
I don't know.
I got
either.
this from.
I don't know either.
Unsplash, and it didn't. I don't think it said what model.
Tesla surpasses $1 trillion valuation after Hertz order. That's the value of their stock.
This is so funny.
It is funny.
It is. It's funny. People were selling Tesla short when it was worth $50 billion, and now it's worth $1 trillion, and it's like this growth of this country is just outrageous. It's so fast. Tesla surpassed a market value of $1 trillion after it struck a deal to sell 100,000 vehicles to car rental firm Hertz, which drove the share price up 12.6%. It is the fifth company to top $1 trillion after Apple, Microsoft, Amazon, and the owner of Google, which is called Alphabet. Elon Musk's Tesla shares are worth $230 billion.
So he knows where his next lunch is coming from, doesn't he?
I think he does, yeah.
For years, Tesla struggled to ramp up production of cars, leading some investors to speculate it would fail. Last year, the company, led by billionaire Elon Musk, became profitable for the first time.
Last year, it became profitable for the first time. Yeah. This year, it's worth $1 trillion.
Well, prompting its shares to take off.
Yeah.
Okay, so people started buying stock.
Oh, man.
The deal with Hertz is the biggest ever rental car order for electric vehicles. And Hertz is also going to be building a network of charging stations.
Yeah.
So this is serious. These guys know what they're doing.
Well,
these are professionals.
Yeah.
Nobody knows cars more than Hertz.
Oh, yes. I think that may be true.
Probably more than Chevrolet and General Motors does.
They might, yes, because they're the users and not the producers. Producers, what do? They just design them and ship them.
Just looking at this. Tesla produced about half a million cars in 2020, which is a lot lower than Volkswagen, which made 10 million.
Yeah.
Okay, but Toyota and Renault, Nissan, Mitsubishi combination, both manufactured 7 million vehicles. So Tesla's got a long way to go.
In terms of the numbers of cars.
Well, he set his annual sales growth target of 50%. So he hopes to reach 20 million vehicles each year. I think he's going to do it.
I think so. Okay, we have an item from Yahoo News.
Oh, we got another bomb cyclone.
And this is the bomb cyclone in the picture. The article isn't about this bomb cyclone. It's about a different one. But this bomb cyclone.
This is a bomb cyclone picture. And it's right over us.
Yeah, that's right.
If you look closely, you can see Vermont on that map. It's right in the edge of that thing.
Yep. Okay, this, as I said, this is Yahoo News, and I'll bet you know what the title is.
Well, if I can figure out how to scroll this.
Use your mouse.
West Coast slammed by a record-breaking bomb cyclone.
Yeah.
Well, that's not this picture.
It's not this picture, but this picture gives you a pretty good idea of what a bomb cyclone looks like. The last installment of a parade of storms barreled into the West Coast on Sunday, unloading more heavy rain that resulted in serious flooding and debris flows across drought-stricken and wildfire-savaged California. The storm broke some all-time 24-hour precipitation records.
Well, reading this article, they tell you some of those records that it's broken, and it's amazing. I mean, it's all over the Northwest.
Yeah.
An interesting sideline, Mount Rose, Nevada, reported 42 inches of snow as part of this.
They probably love it.
To add to the weather mayhem, a tornado warning was issued in California.
Yes.
And to balance the West Coast storm on Tuesday, that was last Tuesday, a nor'easter brought record-setting 24-hour rainfall totals and wind gusts upwards of 80 miles an hour to parts of New England.
Yes. 80 miles an hour is hurricane strength.
I'm glad I stayed indoors. I don't remember being out in that.
We live in Vermont. You know, this stuff hit Cape Cod and.
I think it did. I think it hit Cape Cod pretty bad, but I think we escaped most
Martha's
of it.
Vineyard and
I think it just brushed us.
We just got rain and an occasional gust.
Well, we got another interesting picture here. Young lady looks very happy.
She looks like she's having fun. This is from S&P Global.
That's a Department of Energy worker on a hydrogen project.
Yeah, it's also an old picture.
And the article says renewable hydrogen will be cheaper than conventional hydrogen by 2030. And the article indicates it's already cheaper, just by a little bit.
Yeah. By 2030, the cost of green hydrogen will fall below that of conventional hydrogen produced by fossil fuels with carbon capture. And the with carbon capture part is important here. On the back of economies of scale and consumer choice, according to the head of the Australian Clean Energy Finance Corporation.
Australia is seeing a rapid rise in the addition of solar power, which we've talked about,
Yep.
and has over 80 hydrogen projects planned. We've started to talk about that because that's starting to become important.
80 hydrogen projects. You know, this build-out of hydrogen is amazing. It's so fast.
Well, renewable energy schemes among that 80 outnumber fossil fuel hydrogen-based schemes.
Yeah.
Okay, so they're looking at renewables.
Yep.
And they give some prices. Green hydrogen was selling at $6.06 per kilogram. Hydrogen from steam was assessed at $6.68. So green hydrogen is already cheaper.
Okay.
Or at least it is as of this week, October 25th.
Okay.
Let's move along here. We got a very lovely picture of a smokestack.
Emitting foul pollution.
Climate change. UN emissions gap report a thundering wake-up call.
Yeah, this is from the BBC.
Let's hope it is a wake-up call.
Yeah, this is from the BBC. National plans to cut carbon fall far short of what's needed to avert dangerous climate change, according to the UN Environmental Program. Their emissions gap report suggests the world is on course to warm about 2.7 degrees Celsius, which is almost 3 times as much as we've already done.
Well, the emissions gap report looks at nationally determined carbon cutting plans that 120 countries have submitted to the UN ahead of this COP26, which happens next week.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? Current plans to cut carbon emissions don't work quickly enough. But there is hope that if long-term net zero goals are met, the temperatures can be significantly reined in. They're still saying that we haven't done enough to stop global warming.
We're installing solar and wind power, which are our best hope.
Which is a plus.
at a rate that's only about a fifth of what it should be.
What it should be.
Yeah. And, you know, the whole paradigm that we've got, that we're looking at, if you look at the installations of wind power and solar power, and then they say all of a sudden, well, we need transmission lines. And when I see that, I sit there and think, why do we need transmission lines? The solar power should be going in the same place it's going to be used.
Bingo. Absolutely.
The wind power.
And that's happening by default.
Absolutely. The wind power and solar power that is at a distance should be installed with batteries, and then the transmission lines, you know, you're not
going to need them, or at least you're not going to need
new
them
ones
like we have now.
Yeah, and so the transmission lines would be adequate to transmit a great deal more power than they are envisioned as needing to be able.
The article says, and I quote, "The clock is ticking loudly."
Yeah, it's ticking loudly. People, you know, Nancy Ray Mallory, who is the editor of Green Energy Times, which I write for regularly, told me she has a neighbor who doesn't believe in climate change. He just says it's not happening. Now, because of financial reasons, he wants to have an electric car. And in fact, he has an electric car. And his wife has a hybrid, which is going to be electric the next time she buys a car. And they've got a well-insulated house, and they're using heat pumps, and they've got solar panels, and they've got batteries, and they've got, you know, they sound like
So he's walking the walk.
He's walking the walk, but he doesn't believe
He's not talking the talk.
And I'm sitting here thinking, 80% of the moose calves born in New Hampshire die in their first year because of blood loss to ticks. And the reason,
we've talked about that.
Reason for that is because of climate change. And you can just go, why do we have Lyme disease in Vermont? It was never there when my kids were little, but it is now. Why? Because the ticks that move that never lived in Vermont before.
It's kind of becoming a political issue.
It's a political issue?
Well, the people who own the fossil fuels,
yeah,
they're afraid of stranded assets,
well,
and rightfully so.
Yeah, of course they are. Their assets are going to be stranded, and the more they cling to those stranded assets, the more they're going to lose in the end.
I think you're right.
I mean, you know, Tom, I think about what happens when we run down to our last gas station. You know, if you're driving a car that's driven on gasoline, and you say, I'm going to stick with this car.
It's going to be hard to get gas in the next few years.
I bought it when it was new. I'm going to keep it for 20 years. And you know, the time comes when
I'm in that situation.
Another gas station closes, and another gas station closes. The number of gasoline-powered cars in Brattleboro drops from 12,000 to 8,000 to 6,000. You start realizing that you have to drive farther to get gas.
Yeah.
And the gas that you've got is going to be more expensive because they have to cover their fixed costs over at the refineries. And then what happens is, as more and more gas stations close, eventually you're going to be in a position where you say...
It's an endless circle, isn't it?
Yeah, well, it does end when the last gas station closes. But when the last gas station in Brattleboro closes, you say, oh, well, I'm going to have to drive to Keene to get my gas. Or I'm going to have to drive to Greenfield to get my gas.
Use a half a tank of gas just to get a fill up.
At a high price. You know, I mean, there's a point at which this whole thing is going to collapse.
Yes, it can't not.
It can't not collapse. The people who have decided to change are going to continue to benefit from that decision. And the really big example for that is what's the name of the Danish offshore wind company? Ørsted.
Okay.
Ørsted, which used to be Danish Oil and National Gas, and they just said, we're not interested in oil and national gas, and they got rid of those assets, got out of the business entirely, and now they're the biggest owner of wind turbines, offshore wind turbines in the world.
So you can't call them dung anymore.
That's right. Okay,
let's look at this next picture coming up.
Yeah,
here.
we've got one more article. Is that right? This is our last article?
Well, I could look at my computer and tell you.
There you go.
This is the last article.
Okay, this is from, that's a picture of the NREL Flatirons campus. And that's out west.
Oh, is it?
Yeah.
So that's what this article's about.
Yeah, that's right.
High renewable systems are scalable, resilient, and secure with communication-less controls. That's what this article is about.
Yeah, and the idea that these high renewable systems are scalable is important because people know.
You can add another set of panels.
Yeah.
Or take a set away if you want.
Yeah, and many people around here know people who have off-grid systems. Nancy Ray Mallory has, solar power with battery backup, and she happens to have a generator, but her system's big enough that.
But she's not connected to the grid at all.
She's not connected to the grid, and in fact, 20 years ago, it was cheaper to put in solar and battery than it was to put in the grid connection.
Well, it was pretty damn expensive.
Yeah.
You were talking like $10,000 to get the wires brought to your house.
She was told $30,000.
$30,000
to get the wires to her house, and she said, "Well, I wanted solar and solar power anyway." So she just said, "That's what we're going to do." Anyway, she's got 100% solar, and her house is she doesn't. I don't think she's got an air conditioner, but she
didn't need one last summer.
Yeah. She does have, she likes being warm anyway, but she does have a house where the only fossil fuels she uses are propane when she decides to use the propane for cooking. Mm-hmm. And everything else is renewable electricity from the solar panels.
From the panels.
With the exception of heat. The heat can come from wood. But she's got a refrigerator. She's got the various appliances that people have. She's all set up. She doesn't have a dryer, but she doesn't need a dryer. She hangs her clothes outside.
How clever.
How clever. It'd save a lot of money. Anyway, if somebody goes in next door to her with solar panels, they can set up the same system. And if they wanted to, they could tie the systems together to make the whole thing more resilient. And then if another person came along, they could do the same thing. And if another person came along, they could do the same thing. And guess how long they could do the same thing? Forever.
I was just going to say infinitely.
There is no way of knowing.
They're creating their own grid.
They're creating a microgrid, a mini grid, or whatever it is that you want to call it. And that's what is meant by the...
Well, this article here is kind of technical.
Yeah.
It's talking about the National Renewable Energy Laboratory.
Yes.
Has developed a communication-less scheme that can be programmed expediently.
Also very important.
It's communication-less. They're not talking to each other.
They're not talking about high-tech controlling this. Well,
no.
It is high-tech, but it's not high-tech.
Rather than having a central controller issuing commands to solar and wind assets, each device is programmed independently to produce a sort of self-organizing stability. So they're decentralizing their grid.
I think this is fascinating. And there's one other thing that it reminds me of, Tom. Years ago, there was a terrible fire in the Napa Valley area of California, and it hit the vineyards. And there was one vineyard there where they had solar panels and battery backup, and the whole thing was tied to the web internet by satellite. And when the people who worked in that vineyard evacuated because the fire was coming, they left, but they could still control what was going on.
I think I remember that.
And they turned on the irrigation system or the whatever it was,
I remember
and
that.
protected the vineyard from a distance, and it didn't burn down. So anyway.
Well, this is a picture of the National Renewable Energy Association.
Laboratory.
Renewable Energy. This is the laboratory.
Yeah.
And I think they've got more wind turbines on there now.
Oh, they've got a lot of wind turbines.
I've seen an aerial picture of it, and it's a pretty big operation.
It's a big operation, but it's a test
It's just
operation.
a lab.
It's just a lab, but it's a big lab. So we're suggesting that everybody have an unassailably exquisite week. There it is.
Is that what we're doing? Unassailably exquisite.
That's right.
Yeah.
No denying this one. Okay.
Not just an exquisite week, an unassailably exquisite.
That's right. Okay, why don't you put the both
I
of
was
those
just
up?
about to do that.
Yeah, I think that's a good idea, and we'll wave goodbye. Goodbye, everybody.
Y'all come back and see us now, you hear?
It would be preferable if you come back and see us.